Hello and good evening, everyone. I am Devyansu Raj, your host for this event, and I welcome you all to amazing session on Google Summer of Code. And this is our second session of GSoC Camp. And today we have with us a remarkable individual who has cleared Google Summer of Code in 2023 and contributed to VideoLAN. He was ex-core team member of Google Developer Student Club Heritage Institute of Technology and has done significant contribution in this community as well. So, guys, I'm talking about none other than Ayush Dey himself. He's with us today. He will share his remarkable journey in contributing to VideoLAN in GSoC and the insights which he has gained by contributing to this esteemed open source program. So, I would request Ayush Bhaiya to introduce himself, although I have introduced, but if he wants to say something about himself to this community.
Hi Divyanshu, thanks for having me. Okay, so you must have all seen me. I'm a previous core team member of GDSC Heritage. I've contributed to VideoLAN as a part of Google Summer of Code before, and formerly interned as a research intern at TCS Research. So that's pretty much my introduction. Yeah.
So yeah. So guys, this session is going to be a kind of question and answer session where I will be asking the doubts or the questions which we have received from our community, and we have Bhaiya with us who will be answering. And believe me, you are going to gain some insights which are like so exclusive, and it is only for our like community. So starting with the most like the question which I got from most of the members of our community, like you were selected for Google Summer of Code, like it itself is a big achievement for any individual, and selecting an organization after that is the most crucial phase, I would believe, for anyone. So like what was the reason to choose VideoLAN while contributing for it, and what are the factors which one should consider while choosing any organization?
Okay, so VideoLAN is the developer of the VLC media player. We all of us must have used VLC media player at least once in our lives. I remember using it first when playing a movie in Windows. The default media player of Windows wouldn't support the MKV file format, so I installed VLC media player for it. So since then, I've always used VLC Media Player. So obviously, the primary reason of choosing this organization was that I've been an avid user of VLC Media Player and a really big fan of the software. Secondly, other than that, really found the tech stack interesting. Like its primary language of VLC Media Player is C and C++. And before this time, I had only used C and C++ mainly for data structures and algorithms. So I wanted to use C and C++ to actually develop something. So that's the secondary reason for choosing VideoLAN as my organization. Now, coming to the factors to keep in mind while choosing an organization, first of all, yeah, the tech stack. Um, the tech stack should be familiar to the individual. Obviously, not all the technologies in that organization should be known to the contributor, but at least the primary language used by the organization, the person should be at least familiar with that. And obviously, the more previous experience you have with the tech stack, more is the chances of your selection. Another factor that is very underrated is the user should actually study and understand the software that a particular organization is developing and be actually interested in it. Like if you are not interested in what you're going to develop for the next 3 to 4 months, then you won't sustain yourself in the long run. So it's really crucial that you actually understand the stuff that you are developing. So in my case, the moment I saw that Videolan is the creator of VLC Media Player, I just checked the tech stack. And when I saw that the tech stack, I'm also pretty much familiar with the tech stack. I didn't surf any other organization. Obviously, you can apply to multiple organizations in GSoC, but I prefer to contribute in that single organization so that I don't get distracted and all, so that I could all uh, concentrate my focus on a single organization. So yeah, these are pretty much my reasons for choosing Videoland.
So yeah, like I think this was like one of the most asked questions in previous session as well, where like our speaker Abhinav Bhaiya said is like roadmap what one should follow for this GSoC. And so like after choosing Videoland, how did you proceed further? Like what are the things which you did after choosing it?
Yeah, this is actually the most asked question in GSoC. Um, okay, so I was also pretty much confused after choosing the organization now what to do. There were large number of resources and all, and it was really confusing. So I decided to take one thing at a time. So firstly, just let me just share my screen. Yeah, is it visible?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so first I chose my organization, as I said, Videoland. Okay, so if you go to the organization, obviously you'll see this view ideas list. So this is where I went first. Yeah, this is their page, and this is the idea list. Okay, so every organization enlists their idea, open ideas. From this you can choose, or you can also come up with your own idea. So first thing I did was I surfed through these idea list, and there are a lot of ideas, and I shortlisted some of the ideas. Now, on what factors did I shortlist? I checked first the description of each idea and the technical requirements. So first I made sure that I was familiar with the technical requirements. Then I shortlisted solely on the basis of which description interested me the most. After shortlisting a few, I researched on the archives of GSoC. If you go to the archives of GSoC, uh, in this particular organization, I saw that whether this particular idea has already been worked on, or has any work already started on this particular idea. So after researching on all this, what I used the strategy that a particular idea which has not been enlisted in GSoC ever before in archives. So that particular idea must have had a huge potential of contribution because it's really new. No one has worked. So yeah, so this is where I found that this particular idea, interactive movie support, this was not worked before. So for that timing, I chose this idea. Hmm. After choosing this idea, I researched, I understood these points, and researched more about what can be done regarding this idea. From where I researched in Videoland's website, there are a lot of resources. Like one is their forum, where users of VLC Media Player requests the features, any particular feature if they want to add it to VLC Media Player. Also, they have a bug forum, their repository in GitLab, and also their communication channels. They are on IRC, Internet Relay Chat. So these are the places where I researched about this idea and noted all the points that I could find out. After that, I observed the way their maintainers communicated in the IRC channels and the forums. This was all to get myself accustomed with the community, nothing more than that. Um, Other than this, so after I had pretty much noted down everything I could find before making my first contact. After that, what I did was I did my local setup. If you go here, Here, compile VLC. They have another wiki page where the documentation to locally set up VLC media player is given in detail. I locally built the VLC media player. All this stuff I did before establishing my first contact. Why? Because I wanted to make sure that I have done as much research from my side as possible before establishing a first contact. This is really important, and I would recommend it to all contributors, aspiring contributors, that before asking for help or even establishing your first contact with the mentor, you should do as much research as possible from your side without their help. Why? Because then the mentor will see that you are actually willing enough to get the project started. So this is really important. So these are the stuff I did before establishing first contact. Then I mailed my mentor. Okay, I've kept it ready. I'll just share the first mail that I sent to my mentor. Give me a moment. Yeah. So this is the first mail I sent to my mentor about the research I've done, and to state the fact that I'm interested to work with him during GSoC. So firstly, a brief introduction of myself. Then I stated the idea on which I wanted to work upon. Now, if you see the first paragraph, this is a brief points of the features that I wanted to add as a part of this project. And the second paragraph states the way through which I wanted to achieve it. And then I asked for his feedback. So this is how I established first contact, and this is the reply he gave me. Now, yeah, if you check, if you is it visible, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. So basically, he stated me that this idea was really difficult to implement, and the previous contributors that have already worked on it failed GSUG because it's a really tough idea. And that's the reason I couldn't find any work on it in previous GSoC archives too. But one thing stated was that I was motivated enough because I did my first research. That's why I gave you the tip that you should do as much research as possible. So yeah, after this, my first contact was established. Then, as you can see, he told me that he can suggest me ideas on which I wanted to work on. He suggested me ideas. We didn't go for this idea. I went for another idea on which the work was feasible. So this is mainly how I established my first contact and did as much research possible. Yeah,
So yeah, those who are actively associated with our community, they all know that you have contributed significantly to the video LAN. So like, can we get a overview of your proposal which you made to them?
yeah, sure. Okay, so now when I was talking about the research, what I did was I noted down as much information as possible that my mentor gave me. He also asked me to study the code base. Now, studying the code base is a tricky part. Many of many people have already asked me how to understand a large code base, where to start from and where to end. So for that, I seeked help from my mentor. He advised me the particular files and folders that I needed to study for this project. Because if you have checked Videolan's codebase, it's a really huge one, consisting of thousands of modules and plugins, etc. So I didn't even attempt to study the entire stuff because it was practically impossible. So I studied only that part which he recommended me, and I pretty much understood the architecture about that part, how the software worked. So these are the stuff that I noted down, and in my the goal was to prepare the most detailed proposal as possible. So I'll just share my proposal. Yeah. So in the first page, you just give your name and contact details. Then I gave a project synopsis. In this section, I just gave a brief intro of the project that I wanted to work on. By this time, I've changed my project to add multiple audio tracks playback support. This is basically concurrently playing multiple audio files together in the same media player tab. This feature currently in the deployed version of VideoLAN, if you check, it's not deployed yet. This feature will be introduced in, I think, VLC 5.0. So yeah, this is the intro. In the intro, you just state some brief features that you want to add. In the next section, benefit to the VideoLAN community. This section basically you state your purpose, why this feature is useful, what are the potential use cases of this feature. When I was going through the forum of VideoLAN, where I said that the users request the features that they want, I've seen multiple posts where users have requested for this feature. This feature is mainly required in gaming, where the streamers record their mic and the game audio simultaneously. So I found multiple instances. So this was mainly which I jotted down here. This showed that I researched through the forum thoroughly. After this, an about me section. This is where you write about yourself. This is where you advertise yourself. Um, you have to state all your previous experience and skills, whatever you've done, and make sure that you emphasize more on the technologies and skills which are related to this project. Like here previously, my C and C++ experience was just data structures and algorithms, so that's what I stated. I didn't apply it in any internship and all. Another important fact is you need to state your previous open source experience as much as possible, because as GSoC is open source, the video line is open source, they will always encourage open source participation as so no matter how small your open source experience previously, you should state it. Like here I've stated that previously my open source experience was just a moment. Yeah, my previous open source experience was mainly Girl Script Summer of Code and Social Summer of Code, those open source programs. So that's what I stated. So this is the section where you advertise yourself basically. After that comes the most crucial section, deliverables. This is where they see what you have researched for 2 to 3 months before applying to GSoC. So here you have to state the points that you are trying to achieve. You have to state how you want to achieve. And all of this factor, I didn't come up with it alone, obviously. I took a lot of help from my mentor. He guided me through all this because alone I could not have achieved to know so much technicalities of the VLC code base. After this, you have to state a tentative timeline. Basically, a detailed work breakdown structure of how you plan to achieve the completion of your project. So this is the tentative timeline that I presented to my mentor. See, basically, the goal is one thing you should keep in mind is this proposal that you're sending will be evaluated by your mentors and organization admins only. So from their point of view, you have to see that you've built as much relation with them and proven to them that you are actually interested and willing enough. This is all that is needed for GSoC. Apart from the technical coding part. So, and in this timeline also, you at the end, I've mentioned that I might need 2 to 3 weeks of any engagement that you might encounter during the coding period. You should always let them know beforehand so that they can plan accordingly. So yeah, this is pretty much my proposal. Um, a tip that I would give regarding the proposal is after preparing the first draft, before finally submitting it in your GSoC console, you should always get it reviewed by your potential mentor and get feedback from him. What I did was I sent multiple drafts of this proposal to my mentor and got it reviewed and incorporated the feedback that he suggested. Then only when he finally gave me the go ahead, then only I submitted it in the GSoC console. So that is where I pretty much knew that my selection had to happen. There was no other choice. So this is pretty much regarding the proposal. Yeah.
So yeah, as you already mentioned, everyone must have used like VLC Media Player at least once. So like I was in my first year when I got to know that like you have been selected for this particular program. So I was so curious what kind of contribution you will be making to like VLC. And as being a fresher, I was not very much aware about like open source and all these things. So like it made me deep dive to know about these things, like what are open source, like what kind of contribution you can make to GSoC. So like as we know, like we have to have some coding skills definitely to get selected in like a STEAM program like this. So if we like we want to know like what was your experience during coding part of this journey?
Yeah. So in the coding part, before GSoC starts, it's always recommended to make some previous contribution to that particular organization that increases your selection for GSoC. So during the community bonding period, I asked my mentor that whether I could get myself accustomed with some small first contributions. So what happened in Videolan is he said that contributing to Videolan is a bit complicated right from the beginning. So I should study more of the architecture first and the code base first, and then only start coding outright from the project itself. So I pretty much started from the coding period, the coding part. First, I had a couple of video conference meetings with my mentor where we made a detailed work breakdown structure, a schedule. After that, I started coding and although this was my first experience in using C and C++ for development. Previously, I had only used JavaScript and stuff for development. So I expected that I would encounter a lot of problems, but to be honest, the C++ and C syntax was really smooth, and there weren't much problems. There were problems, and for that, as I suggested before, also you try as much as you can on your own first. Do as much as you research to fix that on your own first, and then only seek for help. That's what I did. My mentors were really helpful, and pretty much everything went properly. I'll just share the merge request. Initially, I kind of pushed to a private repository of mine, and after the work was done, mostly my mentor suggested me to push it into the main repository. So just give me a moment. I'll share it. Yeah, this is the merge request that I've done my work on. Now this is still open because this has not been done yet, and I'm also contributing right now. Also, I committed a few days ago. The thing is, this feature needs to be separately added in every operating system like Windows, Linux, Mac, Android, etc. So there's still a lot of future work left, as I've stated here, in multiple modules in other operating system. For GSoC, I did only Linux, And few days ago, I contributed for the Windows. The Windows part is also done. So yeah, this was my pretty much the coding part. Uh, yeah.
So yeah, we know like when we do coding, we experience some kind of bugs or problems. So I would want to know what are the problems, not only in context of coding, but in general, which you faced while like contributing for this particular program.
Okay. One main problem that I faced was regarding the bugs that you were talking about. The main challenging task was the local setup of VLC Media Player because locally compiling it in Windows was not possible at first. And before that, before VideoLAN, I had never used a Unix system, so I had Windows only. So I faced a lot of challenges while setting it up locally. And at that time, I didn't even contact with my mentor also, so I didn't have that help also. So the problems are mainly while compilation, the version, there are a lot of dependencies, third party dependencies. Mainly the problems are version mismatches. Although there was documentation of VideoLAN, but there were a lot of errors. Thankfully, there was Google and Stack Overflow. Uh, so that's one of the major problem that I faced. And since I found that compiling it in Windows was kind of impossible, and they didn't even have any Docker images for Windows also. So I couldn't even start a container out of it. Uh, if you know, if in containers, basically the dependencies, third-party dependencies are packed in with the software along with the versions that are needed. So if a Docker image existed, then it would have been really easy. So that's why I dual booted my computer, and in Unix it was much easier. Although a lot of challenges were still there, but it was a lot easier. So this is the first major challenge that I faced during this time. And the second major challenge was comprehending the architecture of VLC. Because if you check the code base, it's really huge and it's expected because VLC Media Player does not use any other external installed codec pack. It can literally support all types of file formats, audio and video file formats. So for that, they have a lot of external plugins and modules. So comprehending this architecture was really, really difficult. I had to make a lot of notes in my copy and board and all to understand it. And before this, to be honest, I hadn't worked in a code base of this much size. So yeah, that was pretty much challenging. Mm.
Yeah, as we all know, like every year, a lot of people apply for Google Summer of Code. They start like contributions and all, but only few of them are able to like get selected in the STEAM program. So, like, what is your advice for those who are not able to make into it?
My advice for them is pretty much the same for those who get selected. Uh, it's basically open source is all about communication and your contribution. Even if you don't get selected, you still have this opportunity to carry on with your work research for that organization. And what you do is basically choose first an organization. The same thing for GSoC. First, you make a choice. You choose any one or two organization, and then even if you don't get selected, you still have this opportunity to keep on working. If you're actually interested to for the betterment of that software, then you can still carry on with your work. Contact them, they will always respond because if they are getting external help, it's their benefit, right? So they will always encourage external contribution and inquiries regarding it. So you can still carry on with your research, and after you seek help, you'll grow yourself and then be able to contribute to it. Even if you don't get selected, the point is to not lose hope and then carrying on with your contribution so that you can try again in next GSoC. Or also there are other many major open source programs like LFX and Major League Hacking Fellowship and all. So I think the main point of open source is the best part about open source that I like is there's no luck factor. Like in traditional recruitment system, uh, a lot of luck factor depends. Like I'll tell you, many a times many deserving candidates don't get recruited because maybe their tech stack isn't that familiar with the requirements of the organization and all. But the best part about open source is even if you're not familiar with the tech stack, you can always give your best if you're willing enough, then and get yourself accustomed with the tech stack. Like in Videolan also, I've never used C and C++ for development ever before. I just knew the syntax and DSA. That's it. But I made myself accustomed. So that's the best part about open source that I like. That there's no luck factor. If you're willing enough, then you'll anyway get to work for the organization. Uh, the contributing through a program like GSoC or LFX should be the secondary factor. Obviously, there's stipend and all, but the primary factor is being actually interested in that organization and contributing it. So for that, you don't even have to be enrolled in a program or something. And if you contribute well enough, then the next time you'll obviously get selected because you will have previous contributions to that organization, and that is sufficient enough to get you selected. So yeah, this is pretty much my advice to any open source uh, as aspiring open source developers. And this is the fact that motivates me to open source. I've still carried on with my contribution to Videolan even after GSoC without any program, and I still plan to carry on with it.
So like this, I think this is the last question from my side and from like the community represent. What is your advice to the freshers who have just entered to college? Because like open source is a booming industry these days, and this is a like the source from where one can get into the like one can get the actual flavor of the industry. So we do have a lot of freshers with us in this session as well, and also in the community. So like, what is your advice for them?
Um, Advice would be, see, don't get overwhelmed by the major open source programs. As I said, what you can do is first you can select an organization of your choice, anything. Uh, Having a tech stack familiarity is always an advantage, but I think the first and foremost is to choose an organization without any program bias or anything like GSoC, LFX, whatever. Then if you can manage to keep on contributing to that particular organization, na, then they will also get accustomed with you. You will also have a lot of experience, and then the programs will automatically start to come in. So another question that I've got from freshers is that the I said it also before that they get overwhelmed by the huge code base and stuff. They don't understand how to get started in it. So as I said before, also don't even attempt to grasp the entire code base at first because obviously a code base of a major software will be really huge. So try to understand, try to navigate your way through the code base where you actually want to do the work. If you go to any open source organization repositories, you will see uh, beginner friendly issues. The labels are there, and even if it's not there, what you can do for the first step is you can always set it up locally and then reach out to the community maintainers and all. They're always eager to help. Um, Even if they don't reply in the first reaching out, they will eventually reply if you keep on showing your interest. So they are always eager to help. So Yeah, this is pretty much my advice to freshers. Yeah.
So, thank you, Bhaiya. That was the questions which I got from the community, and I think these questions were needed to be addressed because when you are like applying for a program where you deserve it, but because of like incorrect approach, or I would say because you are not that much known to the steps which you should take, or like the precautions which you should take while applying for that program, your proposal is not selected. That is the worst feeling, or like the worst case for anyone. So thank you for sharing your insights and for giving your time to this community again. Thank you, Bhaiya, for joining us. And those people who wants to interact one on one with him, we have a meet planned just after this session. It is there on your screen. You can join this meet and you can interact one on one with Bhaiya, and like can clear the doubts which is still there. Although we tried to clear all the doubts, but still, if you have something, you can join us. And guys, one amazing thing is coming. Our community is completing its 5 years on 25th of January. We have planned something so special for you all. So stay tuned on our website and on our socials to know more about it. Thank you, Bhaiya, and thank you all for joining this session.